Have the conversation. People would ask me why I became a gambling addiction expert and clinician. And my answer is often, we're getting more and more legalized gambling. And while I'm not for or against gambling, I just want help for those who need it. But that's not the whole story. Early in my career, I worked with individuals with drug and alcohol problems. And I was fortunate to work with a man, we'll call him Jay. Jay struggled his young adult life with alcohol, pain pills, and heroin. When I began working with him, he was living a life of recovery for the first time. He had a full-time construction job. He was on probation, and he was living in a three-quarter way house. You know, 3/4 of the way to being on your own. And during my work with Jay, I often wondered why he still wore the same clothes and remained underweight. So I asked him, "What are you doing with your paychecks?" He could barely look me in my eyes, and he said, "I keep playing the cherry machines on payday, and I can't seem to stop until it's all gone. $700 a week, and I can't stop." And I said to him, "You shouldn't be in bars with your recovery." And he said, "I'm not in bars. I'm at the Pickle Barrel." And for those of you who don't know what the Pickle Barrel was, it was a deli-style sandwich shop on the south side of Pittsburgh. And they had video cherry machines sitting on the counters. And that was my blink moment when I realized gambling is everywhere and so socially acceptable. Soon after that conversation, Jay moved into his own apartment. And unfortunately, he died by suicide less than a month later. I was helping him with the drug and alcohol problem, but I didn't know how to help him with the gambling problem. And that was the day that I vowed to have the conversation, as if someone's life depended on it. So since the days of Jay, I have made it my mission to be trained, to train, and serve as many people as possible by having the conversation. I learned that gambling addiction has a high suicide rate, 20 to 40%. It's called the hidden addiction. I now carry this message to you because you have so many opportunities to have the conversation before it's too late, too severe, and too devastating. We must eliminate the shame and stigma associated with gambling addiction. The latest Me Too movement and suicide prevention awareness campaigns have also echoed the importance of having the conversation. Unfortunately, it took losing two famous people, Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, to allow us to openly talk about suicide. For so many, suicide is preventable through conversation and professional help. And it doesn't matter if it's due to mental illness or substance use or gambling. In fact, 75% of problem gamblers have depression, and 1 in 5 attempt suicide. Have the conversation. So I would ask people, "Do you gamble?" And they would say, "No." "Oh, sorry." "Do you play the lottery?" And they say, "Every day." We have gambling in airports, in shopping malls, on smartphone apps, on the internet, in casinos, in social clubs. Doesn't matter, it's everywhere. We must have the conversation. March Madness, March Madness. People bet on multiple brackets during March Madness with friends, coworkers, and colleagues. You can be on a company conference call waiting for everyone to join the call, and people are talking about past weekend games. Company emails encouraging employees to participate in the latest Super Bowl square or March Madness bracket, portraying it as pure entertainment without any risk. Companies now hold events and conferences in Las Vegas or the local casino. And just wait until the Powerball or the Mega Millions is at an all-time high. Have the conversation. So how did we get here? Research suggests that the average age of first gambling is age 8. Think about it. Church fundraisers, social clubs, Monte Carlo nights at camp, watching sports with uncles, cousins, brothers, learning what the spread is, the over, the under. Yet parents are hesitant to talk to their children about the dangers and warning signs of problem gambling because they think their kids are too young. Really? The National Council on Problem Gambling has a holiday lottery campaign, educating adults not to give children lottery tickets and scratch-offs as presents. Just let that sink in. Have the conversation. When do we talk about the dangers and warning signs of problem gambling? Often when it's too late to prevent. Society sees gambling as socially acceptable, form of entertainment, it's fun. So if you develop a problem, it's a personal problem, and there must be something morally wrong with you. Yet for every individual with a gambling problem, 8 to 10 others are affected. Have the conversation. So people want to know why some get hooked and what is this all about? I mean, people gamble for fun, excitement, for competition, for action. Some to numb, to escape, to avoid life's problems. There is a psychology to gaming. The gaming industry has practically perfected it. So think of games of chance. Lottery, bingo, slots. Best way to think about this is a coin toss. Every time you toss a coin, it has a 50-50 chance of being heads or tails, independent of anything prior. History doesn't matter. But how many people do you know study the past winning lottery numbers as a way of predicting a future winning number, as if history matters? Bingo. People will study the cards. They'll study the serial numbers on the cards to make sure they're the right cards. Who they sit by. Do they have troll dolls? And on, as a way of controlling the outcome when it's pure chance. And the slots. People will say, I have my lucky machine. Oh, you never sit near the door. You always sit in the middle seat. And on. And they believe that their machine is due to hit, as if history matters. Now, games of skill. We all get better at doing something from the first time we did it. But what most people don't realize is games of skill still have an element of chance. And so poker, blackjack, people will play as much as they can. They'll read books as if it's pure skill. But really, you have no control over the cards you're given. You only have skill over what you do with those cards. And sports betting. I must admit, this is quite controversial whether this is skill, because I have to say that unless you're the athlete, what's the skill? People will study the stats, they will know their teams, they even know the coaches. But in the end, you just never know. In 2018, the Federal Supreme Court overturned the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act that originally prevented states from having legalized sports betting. It is expected that we will have up to 50% of the states have some form of sports betting by the end of this year. And in Pennsylvania alone, with only 3 casinos originally in operation, $16 million was wagered in the first 2 months. Have the conversation. Athletes and gambling. We know athletes are more vulnerable to addiction. Their brains are primed due to the intense physical endurance that they have. Their need for action, competition. They can play through pain and they can endure great loss. Society puts them on a pillar. The NCAA has a zero-tolerance policy for gambling and student athletes. Yet 1 in 4 male athletes broke this rule in the past year. And we're learning of more athletes and referees that have been found to throw a game. Have the conversation. And the brain. We know more than ever about gambling and the effects on the brain. We all think crookedly while gambling. Oh, I was so close. I almost won. But when most of us step away, we return to normal thinking, while others still have that distorted thinking even when not actively gambling. And I would say to you, you're not so close, and you didn't almost win. You lost. Because you can't be so close or almost win, just like you can't be almost pregnant. The other part of the brain, for some, is that they store a near miss as a win, activating the brain in the same way as if it was really a win. This helps to explain why some people continue to gamble and can't stop even though they're losing. Have the conversation. And I leave you with this last thought. Gambling is not self-limiting. We know with excessive drinking, the body eventually shuts down. But with gambling, there are no limits. You don't ingest anything first. So this leads to greater ability to keep it hidden because you can't see it in their eyes. You can't smell it on their breath. They don't slur their speech. So there's greater ambivalence to do anything about it because no one knows. Have the conversation. It could save someone's life. It will save someone's life. Thank you.